I tried to enlist in the service, and we were told that we could not. We were classified as 4Cs, which was enemy alien at that time. And a lot of these Japanese American boys were interned in these camps throughout the country, but many of them volunteered for service. I felt I was an American like anyone else. Well, they said, no, you have to prove yourself because you're at war with the Japanese, and that's our ancestry. We have to prove that we're loyal to this country.
Early in 1944, 18-year-old Hiroshi Miyamura was assigned to the Nisei 442nd Regimental Combat Team, which would gain fame as the most decorated American unit in the war. He shipped out to Europe just as World War II ended, but he would not see combat until 1950, when his unit was called to active duty in Korea.
When we landed in North Korea, it was winter in November. It was the coldest I've ever been in my life. Never received the food that we needed, let alone have the proper clothing or anything like that. Miserable. It was a miserable time. We made our way up to the eastern side of North Korea, near the Chosin Reservoir. In fact, we were so close to the Yellow River, we could, from my position, I could see the enemy massed on the north side of the Yellow River. After the Chinese army moved in, we were told to pull back to the south of the Emchen River. And I was, being the machine gun squad leader, was told to hold this position as long as I could, because we knew we were outnumbered so bad that it would be impossible to hold it.
As night fell, Miyamura and his handful of men sat listening to the approaching sound of Chinese troops banging on pots and pans and blowing whistles. When the noise suddenly stopped, there came a burst of flares, followed by a massive attack. Miyamura and his group opened up with .30 caliber machine gun fire as waves of communist soldiers stormed their position. When the enemy threatened to overwhelm his group, Miyamura rose from his machine gun and charged them, killing 10 by bayonet and rifle fire. He then returned to his gun, and when it jammed, he manned the last working gun and told his men he would cover their retreat.
I realized they were getting behind my position, so I told the members of my squad to withdraw, and I covered their withdrawal. Stayed and covered their withdrawal. Our own artillery started falling on my position, phosphorus bombs. So I realized then they thought everyone was off of the mountain. So I started making my way down, and I ran into an enemy. I bayoneted him, and he had a grenade, and he threw it at me, and I kicked it back, and it went off. I didn't realize then I was hurt, but I made my way down the mountain, which was quite a mountain. But by the time I got down to the base of the mountain, I ran into a barbed wire entanglement, got cut up. I dropped to my knees, I crawled underneath it. I ran until I just dropped. And I laid there, I heard footsteps, a lot of footsteps go right by my position. But I didn't move, and when it died down, I thought I had it made. But a voice in English said, to get up, you're my prisoner.
Miyamura was led, along with his comrades, on a brutal forced march through the withering temperatures and unforgiving terrain of North Korea. The bitter, month-long journey led to a POW camp, where he was to be held captive for the next 27 months.
When the peace talk started, the Chinese said we were going to go home, but that went on for 2 years. My wife wasn't even notified. She just got a letter that I was missing in action. That's because the Communist Army would not release names.
In the summer of 1953, Miyamura was turned over to U.S. authorities at Freedom Village in Panmunjom. He was debriefed and then led out to meet the press, where Brigadier General Ralph Osborne hailed him as the greatest VIP to pass through Freedom Village. But Miyamura had yet to discover why.
I crossed over to our side, and there was a reporter waiting for me to talk to me, and when I walked in that room, the commanding general of my division was standing at a table, and he said, do you know why you're here? And I said, no. He said, you had received the Medal of Honor. I remember all I could say was, what? Until I saw that flag, the Star-Spangled Banner, waving in the breeze, that I know. I've learned what it represents. That alone is what makes you feel so humble. So many of the fellows that were deserving never came home to any kind of recognition. There are so many Americans that do not know what the medal represents or what any soldier or service woman or man does for his country. And I believe that one of these days, I hope one of these days, they will learn of the sacrifices that a lot of these men and women have made for this country.